Good evening and welcome to the November 9th meeting of the Timberlane Budget Committee. We'll start with roll call. Please, Carrie.
Sabrina Alberg.
Here.
Christia Clare. Catherine Consalvo. Sierra Dulce. Here. Julie Hammond. Liz Costa. Michael Bascola.
Here.
Sue Sherman.
Here.
Karen White. Here. Mark Sherwood.
Here.
Now I will stand for the pledge. Carrie, would you like to lead us in the pledge? And then we're going to stay standing for a moment, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stay standing for a moment and take a moment of silence in memory of all our veterans this weekend. And I thank you. Before we start our business, I wanted to take a moment as the chair, but speak for the committee and anyone else as well who wants to speak, thanking Kerry for the work that she's done to keep us straight and keep all this paperwork straight for us. We're going to really miss you. We wish you the very, very best in your future endeavors. It sounds like it's an exciting job that you're headed towards, but it's a big loss as far as I'm concerned and Timberlane's concerned. So
Thank you.
best wishes and thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
I have to say, in all my years on the various boards, I have never seen anybody whose work was so thorough, complete, and on time.
Thank you.
Accurate, everything. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I was going to say something really nice, but I'll get choked up. So both professionally and personally, it has been an absolute privilege working with you, your professionalism and your ability, even in some challenging times, to make me smile and feel welcome every time I came into the SAU. That's a rare blend, so kudos and best of luck. You'll be missed.
Thank you.
Sounds like a eulogy, sorry.
So Carrie will be with us tonight and for our meeting on the 21st, but that will be her last meeting. I wanted to thank her ahead of time so it didn't get lost. We've got some minutes to approve, minutes of October 26th, is that?
I got a correction for you,
Oh, what is it?
I think. It says not in attendance with Sierra,
I
but she led the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, I was here.
Oh, shoot.
I was like, wait a second, I just looked at my calendar too, I'm like, I was here.
I'm with you.
I think that was the one that I wasn't here.
That was Sabrina was not here.
I switched you guys up.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
she's also,
I just had to look at the calendar.
she also is stained in the motion below.
Yeah, I was definitely.
I'll switch them.
So with
Okay.
that correction, can I get a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the October 26th meeting minutes with the edits that Kerry agreed to fix.
Second.
Michael and Karen, you got them both? Okay. We're all set, unless there's any other questions. All in favor? 6-0, opposed? Abstained? 6-0. Okay, Mike Mascola and I both have, I think, the same cold, and so we may cough during the meeting. I apologize. So I feel like I'm talking inside my head. Correspondence, anything that we should have? Anybody get anything? Emails? Nothing written? Okay, if not, delegates and individuals. Anyone in the audience wish to share? Seeing none, we'll move on. Discussion of the budget presentations we heard on the 26th. I know that, was it
Christie.
Christie sent an email today saying she had some questions and she'll hold those till the meeting on the 21st. So,
I have a comment. I'm not asking to change anything right now, but there was a comment in regards to one of the presentations we saw 2 weeks ago. It was athletics. So I kind of view, this is my personal take, is every dollar should be treated equally. We shouldn't look and say, well, that's only $100. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have it, I'm telling you, I don't think we should have it. When they were talking about having a dinner for bringing people who are no longer in the school district, or some people, and some part would be reimbursed, I don't care if 99% is being reimbursed. If we're spending $1 on meals for somebody who's not in the district anymore, we gotta ask the taxpayers, do you really think it's fair that we're taking this much money, which will be used for 2 hours roughly, a meal? I'd prefer to take that money and go buy a desk that might have a 10-year span and serve hundreds of kids. I don't wanna spend a penny on a meal except the cookies that you buy. Right? I don't wanna spend a penny on a meal because I look at it and it's short-lived and it doesn't serve a lot of people. It's kind of the same concept we had about the dark room, how many people. So for me, I have a hard time supporting things that don't reach a lot of people and last a long time.
so you're referring to the
dinner at the Atkinson Country
the
Club.
athletic Hall of Fame dinner, where they induct coaches and students and players, et cetera, that had been athletes here into this Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
So honoring them. So you're opposed to, say it was Sue Sherman. Maybe she lives in, I don't know, Poughkeepsie, New York, and she's this outstanding softball coach. And she should be honored in the Hall of Fame. You would not approve of that coach who worked here 40 years to get a free dinner in the Hall of Fame as she's being honored?
That's correct.
It does seem like something that could easily be like the funds could be raised by the various sports organizations, boosters and such, no?
Well,
I know
they do
there's,
sell tickets to the event, correct? I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he said they got about half the money back through ticket sales.
So the tickets they sell are supporting the guests of honor through the process, through the plaque. They use some of that money, kind of washes a little bit. So you think the coach that's being honored should pay for her own dinner?
I wanna make sure that our tax dollars that get spent on our students. And primarily, I'll say this publicly, we're in the business of educating, we're not in the business of raising NFL players, women's soccer players. That's all just a second fun hobby that is short-lived after your high school graduation. Once you start getting a little older and your knees go, don't rely on it, you're gonna need your brain. So, I would put all the efforts of spending the money into pure, raw education. Everything else is nice, but if I gotta start cutting, I'm cutting out a meal.
There are a lot of kids though that do go get scholarships through those that might not be able to afford that secondary
Mhm.
education. So a lot of those kids, you know, that do play those sports
This
in
is
high
true.
school, that does help them move forward.
I agree.
I understand where you're coming from philosophically, and I hadn't thought of it in those terms. Looking at it just a couple shades to the left, one could also argue that paying for transportation to a football game for a cheerleader, for the football players, for the band, could fit into that same bucket. It is a non-directly educational expenditure, but for I think some of our students, it may be integral to their, time here at Timberlane and their identity with the community. But again, if somebody's coming from out of state, I understand why, you would be opposed to, helping supplement a meal for somebody that's no longer resident of the town. I appreciate where you're coming
I
from.
wanna clarify, it has nothing to do if you're a resident of the town. I don't care if you live next to my house in Plastow. You're not part of the school district anymore. I'm not sure why I should pay for your meal.
Well, there are a lot of people I think that are not directly related with the school, yet are supporting the school district.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, and I hadn't thought of it in those terms.
Oh, we lost our chair.
She had to step out and take a phone call, so.
She was doing a discussion on the
On last week.
October 26th. I'll just help Sue out. Anybody else have any other comments?
I sort of have I'm feeling conflicted about the two positions, the security positions at the high school. I've sort of gone back and forth in my mind about it, and $50,000 is more than you pay a first-year teacher that has a master's degree. There was no educational requirement, we didn't talk about any, what these people's backgrounds would be as far as childhood development. And as much as I think it's obviously super important for our children to be safe. But I do feel like that's a big ask right now. And I'm sort of wondering if I'm off base or if anyone, I think, has a similar feeling.
You're not off base. I've had those exact same thoughts, and we may have even shared that discussion. That seems like a rich ask for somebody who on paper would not necessarily have qualifications. And I did bring this up with some other folks, and it was explained to me that this could be used actually as a financial placeholder in recognition that there are some security concerns that our community would like addressed. And by holding that financial place, we don't know what that role is, we don't know what the qualifications are, but if we don't budget for it, it limits our ability to help find a solution for helping secure our facilities. That's my perspective. I'd be more than happy to hear another perspective, because I've been battling the same thing.
Does anybody remember, was that a 180-day position or was that a 250?
Be a school year position.
School year position, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And I think what we'd be more than happy to do is maybe come back and we've got some open meetings, we could have more of a focused conversation and kind of argument for why we feel those positions are necessary and needed here.
Yeah, and also, have there been any studies on these types of positions in schools and the success in improved safety and security of the buildings as opposed to an RSO? In conjunction with an RSO.
Most of the models around the state is they operate in conjunction with an RSO. There's a complementary kind of procedure there. They operate off of 2 different jurisdictions. The campus security people are district employees. The SRO is an employee of the local police department. But there is absolutely usually a combination of support between the 2 organizations.
Okay.
Did you have another concern or?
No,
You said 2, was it the 2 positions or?
They're 2 positions. Yeah, those are the 2 positions.
I did question the necessity for 2 as well, and that's something that we can look at. What's the cost benefit for having a second person replicating their role? But again, I would like to hear more info on that as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to hear more about what their roles will be, because I don't think $50,000 for making sure the doors is locked is okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any discussion on our last meeting from October 26th? Seeing none, and with Sue still tied up.
I actually only want to point one thing, in the running total spreadsheet that carried it to us in the back, she added the positions that have been asked for. So you have now have that in the back.
Sweet.
It's
On the back of
The
this.
big one.
The big one.
long
This one.
running.
Thank you.
In the back, she added all the personnel requests that we have gotten.
So for instance, the ones that Karen was just making reference to would be on here?
Yeah, it's $130,000 for the 2 positions, fully loaded with French.
Got it.
Right here. So
It's the
you add
4th one
into
from the bottom.
Thank you for letting us know that's there.
Thank you.
I guess we can move on to the admin report.
We'd love to. Just wanna highlight for the public, I think at the next BudCon meeting, we're gonna hear from special education and also the director of operations and facilities in terms of those kind of big pieces there. So we hope that people tune in and continue just to stay connected to those conversations. Really wanna highlight something that's upcoming at the middle school. This is gonna be the 41st time it occurs, which is pretty a phenomenal number. They typically host between 60 and 100 seniors from the local community. That upcoming event's on December 2nd. They've got some holiday music there at the middle school. It's at 10 a.m. So just wanted to extend that invitation to any member that's a senior citizen here in the public, but that school is open. And if you've got questions, can reach out there. And I even think there's some transportation kind of avenues available for people as well. So we hope to see people there for the 41st annual kind of holiday music thing for the community. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you're gonna hear a little bit more about it from Ms. Drexel's report through her combination of working through some of the budget processes. But the design teams with the culture for school climate and learning are engaged in our middle school and high school right now. They're currently operating and designing the adult design team. They're selecting the student design team, which is anywhere from 14 to 18 kids. They're gonna be looking at 3 series of data over the course of the next year and really making recommendations to school administration for positive change in their communities. So it is a transformative experience. We'll hear a little bit more from Ms. Knight, but I wanted to update this group that those design teams are getting in place and starting to meet and operate at both the middle school and the secondary school. And lastly tonight, I'm gonna have Lisa make the last announcement. She's got a kind of a little personal connection to this kind of good news. So Lisa, if you could, you'll do a better job than I would.
Oh, I'm very happy to announce the girls' team for women's soccer are the D1 champions, first time for Timberlane. So I'm very proud of those ladies. They had a great season. I couldn't be more proud. I'm a soccer mom from the past, old board member, and when I couldn't be more proud of watching those girls take that championship. So congratulations.
So good news, everybody in Timberlane should also feel really good about that. 4 towns coming together and winning the state championship is pretty awesome. And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Reports of committees, I don't have anything, any updates. Anything from anybody else? Okay, so let's move on to our new business. We have curriculum with Sandy Allaire. Come on down, Sandy, nice to see you.
Good evening.
Evening, Sandy.
So I'll be presenting actually 2 different budgets, but we'll start with curriculum first. So what you see on the slide is our major budget drivers in the curriculum budget. I tried to combine them, so when you look at this budget, it includes things that range from curricular supplies, books, information resources, software, traditional textbooks, things of that nature. But really, if we look kind of holistically at it, across elementary, secondary, and district-wide lines, our largest driver, as you can see, 57% of the curriculum budget is in info access fees. And one of the largest drivers within that category is iReady. And so I know when I've come here for the past few years to present to the budget in the past, I think I shared with you that we were able to, through the ESSER grant that came right as part of COVID relief, back in 2021, we were able to secure a 3-year license with the iReady assessment platform. And so what that is, it's a benchmark assessment. We administer it to students 3 times a year, beginning in kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade. And that assessment gives teachers and families and students data on student performance against grade level standards. And those standards are connected to our curriculum, connected to national guidelines and targets. And from there, students are then placed on an instructional platform. So it is an assessment, but it's more than that, right? So students receive different targeted practice in skills focused in both math and reading in alignment with their needs based on their performance on the assessment. And so teachers are able to both assign differentiated lessons that are personalized to students based on their need, And then the students, right, it's something that's administered 3 times over the course of the year. So it helps us as well to get some really good quality data on how our students are doing so that we can maybe address needs on a larger level at the district level as well. So that program, as I said, we secured a 3-year license. That is expiring. We are in year 3 right now. A 3-year license funded through grant funding was just under $300,000 back then. So I did request quotes. That 1-year renewal, you can see right there. So elementary info access fees, the total cost is $115,000. iReady is $90,000 of that across our 5 elementary schools that use this program. Those lines are broken down by elementary and secondary. So the middle school, that cost for iReady for a 1-year license is approximately $35,000. I did request the cost of a 3-year license. That would be close to $360,000 for 3 years, and we would have to pay that in year 1 and not spread it out over 3 years. So I'm coming to you with a plan to renew for 1 year annually. The cost savings, as I broke it down, would be about $30,000 to $40,000 over 3 years, but again, we would have to pay up front. So I just wanted to be very transparent and let you know that we do have that option, but that would obviously drive this budget up this year much more significantly than what you're seeing right now. But we would have a cost savings next year and the following year. So you're seeing the 1-year renewal built in there. There are some other programs built in there. Some of those are library resources that are used, our librarians budget for that. We have some other instructional programs that target a multitude of different subjects, content areas, ranging from social studies, science, world language. And so that's a lot of our online learning is built into that line. The second major driver is books and information resources. And largely, we've been working as a curriculum team. We've had both science and math curriculum committees that have been working for the past 18 months or so to have conversations about looking at our curriculum, making some revisions. We actually just had some revised curriculum units go to the school board back in September and October. And so with that, we are having some conversations about math resources and science resources. We are going through that process this year. We have not selected anything specifically right now, but as you know, we have to budget so far out that these are right now anticipated placeholders for what we anticipate the cost for those resources would be for next year. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have around the curriculum budget, but those are our significant drivers that we're projecting for next year.
Now, iReady has been in place for 3 years.
Yes.
I have 2 children in the
Yes.
district. They've been doing iReady for 3 years. I personally, as a parent, I'm not a huge fan of it.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you why. It's busy work, largely. A lot of the lessons are not relevant to the current subject matter that the kids are working on in class at the time. Maybe that's user error, maybe that's planning, I'm not sure. I can see how it can identify learning gaps, but I think for your average student, they're just kind of phoning it in because it's timed. You just have to do a certain amount of time every week, okay? So I don't know if the data you're getting is gonna be honestly very accurate. I know they do the assessments 3 times a year. One of my kids has tested out of iReady for middle school once and moved on to whatever the high school thing is, Common Lit. She tested out of that last year. She started back on iReady this year. She's doing all the same stuff again. So I don't know, this is a very expensive tool that I don't know is being used appropriately as parents.
Sure, and I appreciate that. What I will say, the program is not designed to align with content-based curriculum that is tier 1, what we call all kids in the classroom, grade level curriculums, because they're getting that with their teachers. So it's designed to be a personalized program to meet kids where they're at. So some children, it sounds like you have a child who's at grade level, perhaps above grade level in different skills. That students like your child would be given things that are potentially more challenging that are not aligned to what's going on in the classroom. Students who are significantly below grade level, they're purposefully given practice and skills that they need to master to be able to access grade level curriculum that they're learning in their whole class. I hear the busy work piece, the time, I'm a little bit disappointed to hear that that's how it's being received by kids.
It gets timed out.
the
They're like, do it
time-
as slowly as possible so it can time out. These are the things that.
So the program is not designed to be used in that way, right? And there are resources. I get the personal experience and I respect it. That's something we need to dig into then, because the program itself has added value beyond what you're speaking to. But if that's how it's being implemented, that's something on us that we have to follow up on and make sure that it's not becoming busy work
It
as
comes
your
across
kids are
that way.
experiencing it.
It really does, and I think if you talk to the teachers, you may find the same thing, because I brought it up in teacher conferences, and they kind of give you like, well, you know, kind of thing. It doesn't, in my experience thus far, in the last 3 years, I haven't heard anybody be super jazzed about it, so yeah, that's where I'm at.
So the,
I'll go. Do we have any data, because speaking to something similar, right, I have a child in middle school who has honors with distinction, but then if you look at her iReady things, she's not at grade level, right? So do we have any sort of reports that coincide with how these are given and what context that we're using for them? Because either she's honors with distinction here, or she's not on sixth grade level here, you know, so I'm not quite sure how they jive together. Do we have like reports that show why we give this type of testing?
Yeah, so this assessment, this is a diagnostic assessment, which is different than something that would be content focused. It's very different from, say, the state assessments, but it's connected because they're connected to the same content and curricular standards. But it's designed to be a diagnostic that drills down to specific skills. So your child may be competent, right, honors with distinction in sixth grade social studies, but still struggling to access sixth grade reading skills that are drilled down to things such as vocabulary usage, fluency, things like literature. They're broken down into informational text and literary text. And sub-skills within there. So it's designed to give teachers that level of feedback with regard to what our student needs. So then when they go to a tier 2 intervention, it might be an interventionist who might be saying, okay, this group of children really needs some work to access vocabulary in, it could be sixth grade level text, right, reading. And so that's ideally what those kids are getting support on when they're in a WIN block or working with an enrichment teacher. They might be the group of kids that need more of a challenge, but it's drilled down much more significantly than this child is doing great in seventh grade science, and they're able to apply skills that they're learning specific to a lab that they just did, right? So they're mutually supportive but quite different. And that diagnostic assessment is pretty fundamental to the way that we are operating our tiered levels of supports with students around academics. So without that level of data, if we're just looking at whole class grades, while grades are important, they do not give us drilled down information about student performance and needs. And so while I hear what you're saying, I'm asking you to consider that having access to some sort of diagnostic assessment is crucial to the operations and how we are teaching kids and trying to personalize their instructional experience to close gaps and extend learning for those students who are already on grade level.
is there a way that iReady or another program can just focus on those tier 2 students? Like if the teacher's figuring out these 5 kids need an intervention, can there be enough licenses per elementary school? Like, does that work so that it's not everybody taking it? Because my kid has the same thing. Like, she's not on grade level, but she is. So maybe she might not qualify to take the iReady, but there's kids in class. I don't know. I'm just thinking of.
We can certainly ask about limited
Licenses.
licenses. I can tell you that it's a site license. There is a bit of a cost breakdown. So the cost for Pollard Elementary School is because enrollment is higher, right, is about $4,000 more annually than the cost for Atkinson Academy, right, because of the enrollment differences. So there might be some cost benefit to looking at that.
Or if there's another program, I don't know, like if this is.
So we used to have a different program, we used to use the STAR assessment, we used that for about 5 or 6 years in this district. It did not provide the level of data that iReady is providing for us right now.
Do you feel that the data is actually being used? Because my children
Yes.
do not, are like, I see no differentiation in their learning experience with the rest of their classmates. I almost see none. They're in middle school. I saw it more in elementary school, lots of small groups,
Yeah.
lots of people breaking off into different groups, but I'm telling you, at the middle school, mainstream, everybody's doing the same thing. There is no differentiation in my experience thus far. So are they using it in the middle grades, and this goes all the way up to grade 12?
They are using it in the middle grades. I'm actually meeting with
So
their
what are they
leadership
doing with
team.
that data?
So
as middle school?
I'm meeting with that team actually next Thursday
Okay.
to look at their fall data reports, and we track grade level performance annually. So this is our 3rd year, so we're looking at 3 years now of data in the fall to track student placement towards, again, grade level standards. So how many students are at or above grade level, how many are approaching 2 or 3 grade levels below. But we're also tracking it by cohort. So looking at students who are currently in 7th grade, where were they in the fall of 5th grade as compared to the fall of 6th grade, so on and so forth. Where were those children on the spring benchmark starting the following grade? So we're looking at it in that way. We're looking at growth reports and breaking it down by, so when we target growth, we're looking across 5 performance levels. So students who are at or above grade level early on, approaching 1 grade level below or 2 and more below. We are able to get reports that tell us the percentage of growth across those sub-levels over the course of a year. So that's when we start to have conversations with grade level teams, with our admin and then grade level teams about if we see trends. So we're seeing great gains for students over the course of the year who are 2 or more grade levels below, but very little growth for students who start the year on or above grade level. That's giving us some information to dig in with teachers, right? Are we tailoring our instruction to grade level standards? Are we lowering it to kind of meet the kids who are struggling? So those are the conversations we're having as we look at this data.
Okay.
So, it's a work in progress. Completely understand that there may be pockets where those things are happening, but we're actively working on it, so.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions about curriculum, I'll entertain a motion to accept for review the curriculum budget at $449,850. Need a motion to get it into the review stream.
I make a motion to take the curriculum budget into review at $449,850.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
I'm gonna abstain for now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? Abstain. 601, Carrie. Thank you. Okay, Sandy, now we're moving on to professional learning, which is your other piece here.
As you can see, I broke this down across 4 different major budget drivers. Most significantly in this budget, there are 3 lines. I've broken them down for you right there. It's a total of $215,000 of this budget annually is driven by contractual obligations with the TTA contract. And so, sometimes, and I also wanted to call your attention if you're looking at, the actuals, the voted budget, the expended, the unexpended, those numbers for those lines vary, year to year. So, as we're looking at that, those are numbers that we carry over year to year. Last year, of those 3 total lines, we expended a sum total of just under $85,000. So when you're looking at the actuals and it looks as though we're not fully expending the budget, a large chunk of what's not expended in this professional learning budget is coming from those contractual obligations, because annually there may be in some years more teachers who are accessing graduate course reimbursement or attending workshops, conferences, but those contract benefits remain for all staff and all members of the CBA. So just wanted to call your attention to that. The other large driver is our district professional development days. And so we have 5 of those. 2 are before the start of the school year, 3 are spaced out over the course of the school calendar year. And the sum total of funding those 5 days is $38,000 when you add up all those different budget lines that are targeted at professional development days. Those costs include the cost of occasionally we bring in consultants, trainers, presenters to present to our staff. Also lumped into that is after school PD sessions. So just most recently we had CPR certification workshops after school. And so we have other teachers who have offered to provide training to their colleagues. And so we do provide a very small stipend for teachers who are presenting professional development outside of contract hours. So that's approximately 11% of this total budget. Professional services, again, is trainers not specific on PD days. So we tried, time is a luxury that we don't always have in schools to provide training to teachers. So we've had to get pretty creative and think about how can we bring people in for a full day, develop a schedule where we can get teachers rotating in to get training that they need, right? And so that's a $30,000 cost. And then lastly, the 4th largest driver is dues and fees. And those dues range from membership for advisors at the high school who sponsor honor societies, the National Honor Society, to administrators and other teachers who have professional memberships across the district. So again, happy to answer any questions you might have about the professional learning budget.
That's my.
Anybody? If not, I'll ask for a motion to accept for review the professional learning budget at $354,000.
Motion.
Sabrina makes a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Sarah makes a second, any other questions? If not, I'll call for a vote, all in favor? 7, opposed, abstained, 7-0-0. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to student services, we have Ginger. Greetings.
Evening.
For those of you who I may not have met, my name is Ginger Drexel, Director of Student Services, and I'm here to present my budget for this year. As you can see in my budget, there are 3 primary drivers listed with regard to the student services budget this year. For the most part, the student services budget has remained flat funded with the exception of these 3 drivers. The top bullet you'll notice is really focused on some district-wide initiatives. The Navigate 360 for ALICE and CPI training are 2 initiatives that we currently fund, but through other budgets at this point. So the addition to of these 2 items to the student services budget is really about realigning some of our funding to different departments from where they have been previously funded before. And then the other piece of that is the social emotional learning work that Justin had referred to earlier, which is we have contracted with Bill Preble to do some climate and culture work both at the middle school and the high school to really focus on student voice and choice and improving student engagement, respect, and just overall, like I said, climate and culture within those 2 buildings. The next budget driver is the tuition costs for other LEAs for best interest determination cases that come to us. So these are situations where we might have parent requests to the superintendent and the board for their students to attend school in other districts, and that $45,000 is budgeted to pay those tuition costs in situations where it is approved for students to attend school outside of our district. And then lastly, are the request for 2.5 additional positions in my department. This year, I would like to request 2 additional school social worker positions. One of those positions would be a full-time dedicated position to the high school, who does not have a social worker at this time. And then the other full-time position would be a district-wide position that would be assigned at the elementary level. Last year, we did get approval for 3 positions district-wide for social workers. One of those is currently at the middle school. We have the other position, which is a split position between Sandown North and TLC. And then the third position is a split position between the other 3 elementary schools, which you can imagine having one position split up across 3 schools can be challenging. So that is a request for those 2 positions funded at $110,000 each to include benefits. The other half-time position that I would be asking for this year is a half-time ESOL teacher position. Currently, we have 1 full-time ESOL teacher that services all of our students across the district from K to 12. We do tend to have some minor fluctuation in the caseload. It doesn't necessarily fluctuate extensively from year to year, but the one thing that we are starting to see as a trend is that we have students coming to the district that just have a higher level of need of instruction because they may have had limited exposure to the English language before enrolling with us. So based on the testing that we do, we have certain requirements with regard to the number of hours that students should receive direct instruction or group instruction. And because we have one person providing that instruction across the district, it can be really challenging to make sure that the students are getting the degree of support that they need. So that is why I'd be looking to increase that support to another half-time position. Happy to answer any questions.
Mike?
Yes.
I'm not sure if my question goes to Ginger or maybe Maria, but can you, in this example here of these 2 positions, what might the benefits component be? Because it says with benefits.
Yeah, so the benefits is the FICA, the New Hampshire Retirement System, which for certified positions is 19.5%, 19.48%, and is health insurance, the insurance.
So if you were to throw out a dollar figure, what would you roughly say?
So we usually say it's 30%, that's the average, that's what we use, because you don't know if the person is gonna take full family insurance or 2 people insurance, or, like, it just fluctuates
Okay.
Any other questions to Ginger?
CPI training,
Yes.
explain.
Sure. So CPI is the Crisis Prevention Institute, and it is the de-escalation training that we use across the district. We have trainers across all of our buildings at this point with the exception of 1. So part of the funding is looking to increase trainers so that we can train our staff within each of our buildings during our professional development days. It encompasses everything from, providing staff with information as to how to de-escalate situations with students using various verbal approaches, all the way to training some staff on how to do some physical intervention if need be to maintain safety for students.
The social emotional work, is he here this year?
Yes.
And full time? Like, how is that working?
And if you want to speak to
Sure,
the
I'm happy
specific
to. He is here
hours.
this year. The contract's written out that he comes in on a monthly basis and he's meeting on site physically. He works with a component that will do some virtual work with those teams over the course of the year as well. But there's some on-site time, there's some consultation time, and then there's some virtual time as well.
Is he working with kids at all, or just teachers?
He's working with both.
Any other questions for Ginger? If not, I'll entertain a motion to.
One quick question, you mentioned, I know it's gonna fluctuate from year to year, but approximately right now, how many English second language students do you have?
So there's
District.
17 students
17.
currently that Melissa is supporting. And while I have a moment, I have the floor, I would just like to give a lot of props to Melissa and how hard she works across a district. She's really invested in just continuing to grow this program. So I just wanted to take a minute and just say how much I appreciate her and the work that she's doing. But yes, so 17 students she's providing direct instruction to. There's also a number of students that remain on what they call monitor status. So after students test at a certain level, using the testing that they take in the spring, she will continue to monitor those students for a number of years to ensure that their academic progress is consistent. And I can't give you exactly the number of students that she has on monitor at this time, but I would say it's in the 12 to 15 student range.
How many schools are those 17 kids divided?
They're across all 7 schools.
She's driving.
Yeah, she's driving. She's planning and she's preparing. The other thing that is encompassed in that position is in the fall, when we have new students that are identified as having a second language spoken in the home, she will do what she calls access testing to see if they qualify for services within the district. And then in the spring, she administers something called a WAPT, which is another test that generally runs from January to March, where she will test those students that are receiving ESOL services currently to determine whether or not they continue to require that level of support into the next year. So as you can imagine, she's administering these tests over a 2-month period, and that definitely has an impact on her ability to provide the instruction during that time.
Thank you.
There's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion to accept for review the student services proposed budget at $277,044.90.
Make the motion to accept it under review.
Get a second? Mark? Hearing no other questions, all in favor of accepting for review? Looks like 7-0-0. Thank you very much, Ginger. And that brings us to, Maria's gonna talk a little bit about the default budget. Now, remember, we are not in charge of the default budget. This is a school board number, working out, of course, mathematically with Maria and her staff. But I suggested, and we should have a printout of that someplace on this table. Of many, I'll find it, give me a chance. Right there. Got it. But I thought it had been presented at the school board the other night. I listened to that presentation, and I kept hoping to capture the dollar figure, and the dollar figure was not mentioned. I know the school board had the figure, but I didn't hear you say it out loud.
Oh, no, yeah, I do.
I think we did.
I'm
Maybe
here.
it's just I read it so many times
Yeah,
rattling
maybe,
around my head, I
anyway,
don't know.
so I thought, well, we should at least see it. It's not our function, we don't tamper with it, but here it is for your info. So this is informational service only, we're not voting it, we're not accepting it. Got it? Everybody's clear on that?
So the default budget, just as a reminder, is just a budget that includes the prior year voted budget and any contractual agreements that we have. And it takes away any one-time items or purchases or agreements that we had only for 1 year. So last year's voted budget was $87,046,915. The default budget is looking for an increase of $2,560,650, which is 2.9% increase over last year's budget. Obviously, a main driver for for that increase is the personnel side of it. We have $900,000 increase in the personnel side. That includes all the CBAs, all the union contracts that we already have in place with our employees. Then we have $195,000 for the health insurance. Now, the health insurance GMR this year came at 12.5%, which is the highest that I have seen in the 3 years that I've been here. But last year was at 10.8%. So we already had the budget built up to the 10.8, so that we only had to do the 1.7% differential between the 10.8 and the 12.5. So that's why it's only $195,000. The property and liability is a little bit up, and then the workers' comp, the GMR came actually lower than what it was. So the $185,000 is due to insurance increase. The transportation increase, again, because it's a contractual agreement that we have to transport our children, is $264,000. Our food service increase is $135,000. And our special education increase is about $1 million. And we have one-time items, our one vehicle that we purchased that is in the budget for this year. And then all the equipment, like one-time purchase equipments or for equipment or software or any kind of licensing, that is a one-time purchase. It gets deducted from the default budget, so it's a $2.5 million increase or 2.9%.
So I think the back of the, thank you, Maria, I think the back of the presentation, Maria has been providing this to us for the last few years. I think this is
Awesome.
really helps you to understand. I'm a big fan of graphs and really like this, so it really shows. I think it's a very visual where how much is salaries, how much is operating, how much is benefits that we can actually, I don't mean tamper, I don't mean it that way, but we don't control some of that. We control very little of this total pie. So, questions about the default or anything that Maria has said, Mark?
If I could, Maria, just to help illuminate it somewhat, of the 2.56 increase that we have essentially no sway over, over $1 million of that is special education. That seems to be the largest driver that we're required to increase.
Mm-hmm.
Could you break that down a little bit as to what that?
So actually this year, the amount of the increase is for the provided services. So because we have not been able to attain personnel for special education, paraeducators and the psychologists and all the specialized special education personnel, we are having to use contracted services. And obviously the rate for those contracted services is a lot higher than when you if you have somebody if you have staff in house. So
Thank you. That's what I kind of wanted to drive home, because somebody listening to this, it's a $2 million, even if it's a default budget. $1 million of that we are required by the state to spend. $1 million more than we did last year to out-service our students with special needs. We're required by law to give them the services that the state mandates and we, acknowledge they require. Because we don't have those specialties in-house, we tuition them out at a premium rate to the tune of $1 million, and we have nothing to say about that.
You don't control those tuition rates.
no.
Correct.
And it's very hard for special education to know how many enrollments, how many kids are we gonna have to serve in a certain year, because it can go from 5 to 30.
So when people sitting at
One
home are
particular
seeing their
year.
tax bills and saying, and they're spending an extra $2 million on, even if we vote default, $1 million of that is we're required by the state, who is, saying you have to do it, but they're not supporting us, in my humble opinion, as much as they should. It's something we have to do.
These are our obligations that we have to our students, so. Any other question about how the default is calculated or broken down? We often get questions about that from our citizenry that doesn't really understand what this figure is. So I do appreciate Maria taking the time. And again, the back with the lovely graph and the breakdown of the warrant
That's the
articles.
story.
Actual spending is really, really worth you taking a extra special look at if you have the time.
Basically 70% of our budget is salaries and benefits.
Yep.
And then 30% is our operating cost.
Okay, any other business to come before us? Anybody got anything else? I'm sorry, I stepped out there for a minute. Take a phone call. But anything else for tonight? If not, our next meeting is the 21st, is Tuesday night. We agreed we would meet, and we've got some big budgets to see that night. We had to juggle some people around due to other obligations that they had. So these, I think it's 2 budgets. These 2 big budgets that we're hearing on Tuesday night are big ones. It's special ed and what I call facilities, but wanted you to know that, it's a big one, so. We've been Kerry has kept this chart faithfully for us, what we've taken in for review, where we're headed, what's gonna happen next. You can see special ed's number, unless that changes in the next couple of days, and maintenance and facilities, those 2, you know, it's getting there, it's getting added up, so. And then we'll have some decisions we wanna make and some final votes to take, so I'm begging you, I know I believe that's Thanksgiving week. Please, I beg of you to please let Kerry and I know. I don't need to know why you can't come or where you're traveling to. I don't need to know, we don't need to know any of that. Just let us know, because we were worried tonight we weren't gonna have quorum. It was kinda close there for a few minutes, and, you know, it'll be Kerry's last night, and we wanna wish her bon voyage. How did I do that? Mademoiselle, Madame. So, if there's no other business then, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting at 8:01.